Hiya Wayne, lovely to meet up with you again and do some further work on your game. Nice to see that the iron shots are progressing nicely. Quality of strike was really good, and obviously we spent the session on trying to make this driver behave a little bit more as you would want it to when you're out on the golf course. So the first thing we looked at was the way in which you put the weight forward. What we see here, the top left at the start of your session, you're trying to recreate your iron setup. So the upper centre, the sternum if you will, and the belt buckle are very much over the top of one another. So whilst that is producing, or that is putting the weight forward, it's also helping us produce a slightly descending, if not sometimes excessive, descending blow, and it's making it much more difficult to separate the upper centre from the lower centre during the downswing. So in other words, the movement of the hips sideways, if you will, the linear movement of the hips is a little bit harder to achieve with the driver. You've got to do it for longer. So what we'd rather see is pushing the hips towards the target an inch or two, which gives us some side bend to the right, which is now positioning the hips in a slightly more forward position. So it's almost like you're putting the hips where you want them through impact at setup with the driver. The centre of the shoulder turn is still in the centre of your stance. Nothing's changed there. But what has changed is the hip centre has moved forward, and we've now got more of a side bend to the right. So that side bend to the right is created by the hips going forward, not by the upper body dropping back. So you can see on the bottom left, much more like we're seeing with Charlie Wee in the centre of your screen. Pushing the hips forward makes it easier to keep them there during the downswing, and the more the hips move forward, the more the arms stay in, and the less you will swing across the golf ball. So hips forward at setup. The other thing we did discuss was that the ball position needs to move back. Ball position too far forward, the butt of the club pointing outside the left hip. So everything just needs to be moved back a little bit more into this position here, so that the butt of the club is pointing more towards the left hip socket. What we then discussed was using your inclination to the ground, the idea of keeping your head on the wall, to improve the path of your golf club and the consistency of strike. What we see here is a really nice backswing, and then early in the downswing you're going to see the head and the butt move away from those red lines, and you come up out of your forward bend very, very quickly. Now, if the hips are further forward at setup, then that would mean at this stage of the swing, because remember we discussed what you're actually seeing here, at this stage of the swing, the hips would be more in this position, which would help you maintain your inclination to the ground. So if you think in terms of the gap between your hip and the red line there, and concerns that what we see here, or comparison to what we see here, here we've got the head being held against the wall, so I've got the club on the head, trying to allow you to feel that idea of maintaining the inclination to the ground. On the way through now, the butt doesn't come off the wall or the red line quite as quickly, so the gap between the hip is less, so that's your hip slide and the hips moving forward, and as a result the forward bend is maintained a little bit longer and much better. So this position here that we're seeing with the hips forward as opposed to backwards, is actually being represented here. It's just been turned through 90 degrees towards your target. So it's the sliding of the hips and the maintaining of your inclination that's going to tidy things up in regards to your driver. Good luck with it. Any questions, feel free to fire me an email. Well done.